So, will you please give a warm welcome to Melissa Magstadt, our Secretary of Health.
And I will set my phone on stun here, just a second. Oh, goodness. But I will bring it up here so I don't, I could spend hours with you. And, thank goodness your folks limited my time. So good for you. I'm Melissa Magstadt. I don't know if we met last night, but if we didn't, good to meet you this morning. And I was appointed into this position almost 2 years ago. And I've been really trying to say this mantra. It does matter. It matters who you put in office. It matters who your governor is. It matters who you put in those legislative places. But there's a very unique position that a governor has because she is able to make appointments, judges' appointments, boards and commissions all the way across the state, thousands and thousands of appointments, including cabinet secretaries. And what I've came to find out in the last couple years, there's an enormous amount of things that it really falls on me to make the decision. And whoever you put in this position brings their own value system to the decisions that they make. And so, when the governor called me almost 2 years ago, and she says, I know you're really, really busy, but can you come help me? Well, I can't say no to her. I just can't. And so here I am. But I've also now figured out 2 years in that this is exactly where I was supposed to be for this moment in time. So I'm God's kid first and foremost. I'm one of his kids. I'm a U.S. citizen. I love this nation. I love this state, man. I just every year, and even though I looked at this beautiful decorations, and I thought, oh, this means fall, which means winter right after. I'm still love this state, and I just wouldn't choose a different one to live in. And I'm a mom of 3 girls. God, I survived getting them through their teenage years. Woohoo! Praise Jesus. Right? Some of you are suffering through that, so God bless you. And I got grandkids, and I'm going to be a grandma again, April 8th. I know, I am so excited. And I'm reminded, thank you, yep, very blessed. She's had multiple miscarriages, so this is a very, very, very happy family to see her getting her little tummy. But it reminds me again that we are really here for a moment in time and a place for us to keep guardianship of the things that those who before us set in place, right? Dale, you just mentioned in codified law. Do you know how easy? It might sound hard to change statute. No, it isn't. All you need is 51% of the legislators for you to send a peer, and a statute's changed. It's shifted. And so all that came before us have set in place laws that help support life and protect life. And in 1 year's time, 1 moment's time, 1 vote's time, all of those things that were set before you can absolutely be dismantled. And so I was talking to Brock Greenfield back there, and he and I served in the legislature about over a decade ago. And one little secret you should know about how to win an argument and get someone to vote no. And we were having discussions. How do you talk to people and get them to vote no? You don't have to get them to vote no on 10 things with you. You only have to give them a reason to vote no on 1 thing. So if about Amendment G, it's about the extremism, that's enough of a reason to people to vote no. You don't have to convince them on all of the things of the pro-life platform. You just need to give them one reason to vote no. And for me, the extremism, because most South Dakotans do not want all the way to birth abortion as an option in their state. And so for me, that's the one I'm leaning on, giving them the one reason to vote no and to leave things as it is. So I've been a nurse practitioner in our state for 30-some years, and I love healthcare. I love taking care of families and kids and moms and babies and elders. Have taken care of, you do this long enough, you do a lot of things. And so I've been at the delivery when someone else has brought their little one in the world, and I've also been at the end of life when someone has breathed their last period of time. And what a privilege to have been in those very sacred places. And so thank you for inviting today. And I wanted to kind of give you some information about what do I do as a job? What the heck does the Department of Health do? What does the Secretary do? What is our responsibilities for the things that we do in South Dakota? And why it's sort of important that whoever you put in this position has the same values that South Dakota has. So I wanted to share a little bit, and Nathan is my clicker back there. Click, Nathan. I know, look at that. Look at the magic that just happened. Me and Nathan were just working together in sync. So in the Department of Health, we have the mission of protecting, promoting, and improving the lives of South Dakotans. And protecting ambulance services is underneath me. All the food inspections are underneath me. So if you went to supper last night and had a fantastic meal and yanked in here, thank a Department of Health surveyor, because they made sure that you're eating safe food. We do an enormous amount of work with maternal and child. So the moms and babies, we work hand in hand with moms and babies across the states. WIC program, so Women, Infant, and Children Nutrition Program is underneath me. And then we do a lot of the disease surveillance. In other words, if there's an outbreak of tuberculosis in our state, and there are, we come around it, find out who might have been exposed, make sure that they get into treatment, and then we move on. And we have the absolutely end goal of every South Dakotan healthy and strong. So living your fullest life from the moment of conception all the way to when life naturally ends. And that's our job to do it. And by the way, if we do it well, we get out of the way and just let you do you. Let you do you. Let you do family. Let you do whatever work you want to do. That's our job. Our job is not to be the government that tells you what to do and how to do it. Our job is to do these pieces and then get out of your way and let you do you. I know, I love this state. All right, Nathan, click. So, we have a lot of programs that we spend time in, and I want you to share with you this concept called the first 1,000 days. So the governor at the State of the State address, she put in there and declared this particular year as the Freedom for Life year. Weird coincidence, or maybe not, there's no such thing as coincidences, that she would declare this being a year for life. And then we have this battle going on with Amendment G all happening at the same time. But there's this concept called the first 1,000 days of life, and she called it out as a priority in her administration. And what are the first 1,000 days? The first 1,000 days is actually one of the most critical times in your life. And it happened before you even knew it happened. It started on day one when that conception happened. And it happened all the way through the first 270 days of your life, which was all the way through your pregnancy. And then year 1, 365, and year 2, 365 days. So from the moment of conception all the way for the first 2 years of life is considered your first 1,000 days. And that little person that's being grown, there's a lot of growth that happens in those first 2 years if you've ever had kids and seen them almost grow overnight. There's a lot that's happening. Every ologist knows, whether you're a cardiologist or neurologist or psychologist or neonatologist, any ologist knows that those first 1,000 days are some of the most important days of a human's life. And how those first 1,000 days happen sets that trajectory for how life can progress, whether that's nutrition, whether that's brain development, whether that's connection to family and feeling safe in the home that you live in. Those first 1,000 days are priority. And because the governor called them out and said that she wanted to make that a priority, we took that call very seriously to make it our priority too. That includes from the moment of conception all the way to those first 1,000 days, so that every South Dakotan has the best first 1,000 days. So, Click, Nathan. Thank you. We have a really cool department in the Department of Health called Vital Records. And that sounds like probably the most boring department you'd ever want to hear about. Vital Records, what exactly is that? Well, Vital Records is the place where we record humans in our state. So every person that was born today, the hospital will send us their records, and we have the privilege of writing their name down. That so-and-so was born today, at this time, they were such this weight, this is the town they were born on, this is the parents that had them, and this is the county and this. And we establish their identity as a citizen in the state of South Dakota. So we get to record life day in and day out. And we get to put the beginning of the book on every citizen in South Dakota and have since the state existed. I mean, what a privilege to get to write down everyone's name and have them identified as a citizen. And then we get to march through with them all the way through life, marriages and things that sort of change names. And then we also have the privilege of writing down that so-and-so's last day and their last breath ended on this day, and this is what happened. And we have the privilege of putting the bookend on that life lived. So, 50 years from now that someone's gone, family might not remember. It might be, well, there was grandparents, or, it might get lost in time. But the citizens and the persons who they are and when they were born and when they died, and this is not lost to the vital records. It is kept in perpetuity. That your name, your family names, was all written and no one's forgot it because it's written down there. And we get the privilege to do that in the Vital Records Department. But that means we catch a lot of data. And there's some really cool things about that. So in 2022, we had a total of 11,201 births. We have, and this is cool, South Dakota loves their babies. We have the highest birth rate in the nation. So we love to grow families. We love to have big families, small families. We love our babies here. Now, in 2023, we had 31 less babies, so 170 instead. I don't know if that's going to be the top one in the nation yet because I don't know what the rest of the states have done. But man, I would love a 15-year record of being the highest in the nation for having babies because we value them. We value the families that have them. Home births. Now this is interesting. In 2014, there was only 50 home births. Now we're up to 234. So more and more families are choosing this as a potential option for delivering their babies. Now I will tell you, now that we've had 234 babies born home, it has not caused us a problem in our maternal and infant mortality rates at all. So if South Dakotans are choosing this as an option more frequently, and it's also doing okay. It's doing okay. So I have a feeling that year by year, we're going to have more and more home births, and it's going to be just fine. Bring on the babies. In 2023, 106 families had 2-for-1 pregnancies. So they got a really heck of a deal, sets of twins that were born in 2023. So these are very efficient, probably very cost-effective people that got a 2-for-1 pregnancy. Now here's the deal. We had 0 triplets born in 2023. So Allison Kaufman, she's pregnant back there. I told her we're due, and maybe it's her. Maybe it's her that will have a set of triplets, a 3-fer, because we're due to have a set of triplets. We also get to record names. Most popular girl's name was Nora. Most popular boy's name was Oliver. And so we had a lot of Noras and Olivers born. So if you're a kindergarten teacher, 5 years from now, you're going to have a lot of Nora. It'll be a Nora S, a Nora O, a Nora this, just to kind of keep track of all your Noras and Olivers that you're going to have in the next 5 years. Our oldest mama gave birth at 48 years old. So those of you in your mid-40s, there's time. You can still get one more in to add to your family. Maybe break the record and get up to 49. Our littlest pumpkin who was a scrapper, was born at 1 pound, 2 ounces. Oh, what a little precious one. But obviously a fighter. And I have a feeling that in he or she's lifetime, they're going to probably take on some really hard battles and be fighters then too, because they started off fighting, right? And then we also had some chunkamunkas as well, right? God bless the mother that carried this one, who was 12 pounds and 3 ounces. So, yes, right? God bless the mama who carried that one all the way to term, right? But here's my point. We love them all. Little chunkamunkas, absolutely, and everyone in between. We celebrate life, and we have a lot of things to celebrate in South Dakota. And so those vital records, as boring of a division as that might sound, has an enormous amount of things for us and can tell the story of celebration of human life in our state. So Nathan, click. You know, we've got so many awesome things to celebrate, but there are some challenges that we have too. We get this data from our vital records as well, and I want to share this with you as well. When you go to the doctors or your nurse practitioner, your PA, or whoever you go to, they check your blood pressure and they check your temperature and they make you step on the scale. I'm so sorry about that. It's just the way it is. And the reason we're doing that is then that set of vital signs that we're taking, it will tell us very quickly how well you're doing. You have good blood pressure, you have good temperature, you have a good pulse. In general, you're doing just fine. And that tells us as your provider that this person's doing pretty good today. On the other hand, if you have high blood pressure, your temperature's up, and we're looking at your respiration's not doing so well, we're also going to make a judgment call, right? Things are not going well today. We do the very same thing in the Department of Health, except our signs are not your personal information. Our vital signs of the population is these outcomes. And so we take the data. I can't tell you about Melissa Magstad's personal data. I can tell you that if you happen to live in this county and in this particular age, I can tell you in general what your health outcomes are going to be based on some of the data that we collect. And here's some of the tough news, is that our maternal mortality rates are rising year after year. So what does that mean? Maternal mortality rates are really defined as if we lose a mother any time during pregnancy and any time for an entire year after she's delivered. That's a maternal mortality rate. And year after, you can see my little graph kind of tipping up there a little bit. It's getting higher and higher and higher. Now, I'll tell you, it wasn't from home births, so don't let anybody tell you that. We are losing our mothers from substance use, motor vehicle accidents related to substance use, and maybe the most tragic is suicide. That's how we lose our mothers in South Dakota. Now, give you a little bit of comparison of how we compare with the rest of the nation. So the nation in general has a maternal mortality rate of 22.9. South Dakota white mamas, 40 maternal mortality rate. So we are more than double the rate of the nation. But here's something that's even more tragic. Our Native American mamas, 127. So 22 for the nation, 40 for our white mamas, and 127 for our Native American mamas. This is something not to ignore and do something about, and I want to share some of those things that we can do something about it. Nathan, will you click the next one? Infant mortality. Now, infant mortality is an interesting little barometer. So the most, you probably would agree with this, the most vulnerable people in a population are the little ones. And if babies are born healthy and they live past the age of 1 year, you can make just a general vital sign about that population, that this population is probably pretty darn healthy. If you have healthy babies and they live through that first year and move beyond, it's a temperature of how the population is doing. And when the barometer and the temperature starts rising and you see an increasing infant mortality rate, in general, the population is not doing well. Why? Because you see it in the most vulnerable person first, and that's our babies. So The US, so the whole nation, has a 5.6 infant mortality rate. That's actually kind of higher than even other folks in the globe, but that's a different conversation. For white infant babies in South Dakota, our infant mortality rate is lower than the nation. It's at 3.2. So we're about half-ish of what the nation has. But in our Native American babies, it's 17. And in that line, you can see that graph, the bottom blue line is our white South Dakotans. The orange line that is going up like a mountain is our infant mortality rates. And so when the governor gave me a charge and said, I want you to focus on the first 1,000 days, I started looking and checking the temperature to see how are we doing in the first 1,000 days. And we have areas to definitely make an impact. Now, how are we losing our babies? Actually, pretty preventable ways. If we lose a child in sleep, like a SIDS type of thing, 85% of the time, it was related to the fact they had no safe place to put baby at night. So they either put them on the floor, put them in a drawer, put them on a couch, rather than them being in their own little separate bassinet or their own separate pack and play or their own separate crib. We lost them 85% of the time because they were not in a safe place to put to sleep. The other place that we lose them is that they were born too early, born too small, both of which are heavily impacted by whether someone had access to prenatal care. Did we find out they were pregnant early? And did we get them into their midwife? Did we get them into their physician in a way that they can make sure mom's eating healthy, that she's taking her vitamins, that baby's growing like they're supposed to? And all of those things we can intervene on if we find out early. 75% of our mamas get their prenatal care within the first trimester, so that's pretty good. 25% do not, and that's an increasing trend through the years. So we got work to do there too. So, Nathan, click. What are we doing about it? There's 3 of my favorite programs that I want to share with you because they mean so much to me. One of them is called Bright Start. And Bright Start is literally us pairing a nurse who goes into a first-time mom, father, family's first pregnancy and hand holds them through the entire first 1,000 days. From the minute pregnancy happened to those first year, to that second year, gets them to make sure that they go to their prenatal exams and make sure that they are breastfeeding and are being successful at it. Make sure baby's hitting those milestones to get to those well child checks. They walk hand in hand with families for those first 1,000 days. The second program's been around a long time, since the 1950s. And it's the Women, Infant, and Children's program. It's actually a nutrition program, and some of you may have used it. Some of you may have family that has used this. And it's folks with financial struggles to make sure they have access to nutritious food. And not only do we just give them a blank card, we don't give a blank card to go to the grocery store. Nope, you are put together with a nutritionist who teaches you how to cook, how to create meals for your family, how to create healthy eating kids. You know, in a world with the kind of food that we have, you're not born with a natural knowledge of how to feed your kids healthy. And the WIC dietitians come alongside those mothers to teach them how to feed their kids healthy and well, start them on life well. And then the last program that we have was started by Lady Dugard a little over a decade ago. And Lady Dugard, when I was in the legislature, she came in front of the committee and she brought a pack and play and sat it right down in front of the committee. And she says, I've seen our infant mortality rates. We lose babies because they don't have safe places to put their heads down at night. I want these infant pack and plays distributed to South Dakotans who need it. We all voted for that bill. It went through the legislature flying colors, and years later, we've done thousands and thousands of pack and plays for families across this state. We'll continue to do so. Nathan, will you go to the next slide? But here's the deal. Government is not the answer. It's not. I know it might surprise you. Probably the scariest statement is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So I'm going to call on you. You're the answer. You're the answer. your churches, your communities, right to life. You're the answer for, what the world needs in so many ways, but it's even specifically on this in the first 1,000 days. So what can you do? I'm going to ask you to mentor. You got neighbors that are new parents. You got folks in your church. You got folks that are just down the way that just had a new baby. If you've ever raised a family, you know how terrifying it is at times. Come alongside a mentor. If that means that every once in a while you make an entire meal for that family and you take it to their house and say enjoy, and they just sit around the table and talk with one another, man, you've given that family an entire break on getting those kids and giving kids an opportunity to sit around the table with mom and dad. Community showers. We have the Haven Center in Watertown now, which I totally love, and the Alpha Center. Every time a single mother chooses life, she's making a very, very difficult decision. And in some of those cases, there's people who come around and there'll be family that supports, and then there's some moms who are choosing life all alone. And can we start creating places where the community comes around and says, we celebrate this life with you? Whether it's baby blankets and strollers and diapers and all the things that you need to get kids raised up. Communities that come around those single mothers and go, you know what? This is a life we're celebrating too, and we're going to make sure that we support you all the way through. You've seen in my data that tribal communities are disproportionately represented in our data. And I know many of you are in churches that have mission hearts. You do. And you're sending folks out to do some pretty amazing things. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be possible for you to consider part of the mission is our tribal communities. That you would consider adopting a tribe, sending out missions into tribes, looking for opportunities to make a difference in those places that are some very, very challenging places. Top 3 counties, poorest counties in the nation are in South Dakota. Top 3. And you're the answer for helping with that. If you've ever considered fostering, if God's putting that on your heart and you've kind of, I don't know, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Hey, you know what? Consider this your confirmation. That fostering is maybe a good thing for you. Sometimes it's not allowable to allow a child to stay in an unsafe situation. And maybe for the first time in their entire life, they had a safe and healthy and loving and stable place to come. And maybe that's you being that example. And then the last thing, and I would say this not last but not least, pray for the families and the mothers and the babies of this state. And pray for creative and innovative ways to make a difference. I should have put that first maybe, right? That should have maybe been at the top of the list. But I want you to just remember that the first 1,000 days is not my responsibility of government. The first 1,000 days is our responsibility. And we can do it better. We can do it better. So as a governor, she says all the time, she's been the governor who put a life advocate in her cabinet. She goes that we need to take care of the babies before and support life and protect life before, and we need to do the same thing after as well. And I can't help but think that people who value life like this group does is so much better at supporting families and moms and dads after birth as well. So one of my other jobs is that we have 14 health boards in the Department of Health. Board of Medicine, Board of Nursing, Board of Physical Therapy, Board of Pharmacy, boards. We have a lot of them. So, and if you ever attended a board meeting, they're all probably pretty boring. But they do the good work of supporting the providers of the state. And so we do a lot in the Department of Health and Education and regulation, making sure that anybody who practices in the state of South Dakota even has a license. So we do all of these things. And one of the things that we do to help support those healthcare providers is a lot of medical education. And so, Nathan, you want to go to the next one? Thank you, friend. This last year was a very interesting year. In the Freedom for Life year, there came a bill. It was brought forth by Representative Rayfield out of Sioux Falls, and Senator Tobin was out southwest South Dakota. And that bill was House Bill 1224. And what that bill was, like, literally kind of bubbled up from the healthcare providers asking for clarity and understanding of how to perform their duties when the new trigger law went into place. Now, I know this group knows this very well, but a lot of confusion was sowed into medical circles that the trigger law will now cause them to be thrown in jail if they intervene on behalf of a mothers who having a miscarriage. I mean, all of this has been circulating amongst the healthcare providers, and you might kind of think, well, that doesn't make any sense, but I'm telling you, some believed it. Some really felt that that was absolutely true. So we were given the charge with the Department of Health to create a medical education video that clarifies our current laws in respect to protecting the life of a mother. Because that's a talking point too, that mothers will lose mothers unless we have, more unrestricted abortion laws. So many of our pro-life organizations came on board and lobbied with us on that bill. We lobbied for it. Right to Life lobbied for it. Susan B. Anthony lobbied for it. Sanford lobbied for it. I know, everyone's in shock here. So when I tell you that, there was even confusion in some of the camps of other folks who really actually wanted to just know how this particular law worked. And the bill really centers around what to do in our laws if a mother is having a life-threatening type of situation as a pregnant woman. So they requested that we had some clarity with it. I got on the phone, because I know a lot of healthcare providers have been doing this for quite a few years. I got on the phone and started asking, hey, is this useful to you? Will this make any difference? Do you really need this? And I heard from some that, hey, I have no problem with the law how it is. I know exactly how to do this. But there was a significant enough people with confusion or actually had complete misconceptions about how our laws can be applied in emergency situations and life-threatening situations with mothers. And so we decided that that it absolutely was needed to teach healthcare providers how to function and that our laws are workable in the state of South Dakota. So we had to do a couple things with it. We had to, in the technical terms of it, you read that bill, if you read any types of bills, you'll probably get glassy-eyed because they are a bit dry and kind of boring to read. But the things that we had to accomplish is whether we had to come up with a list of what does and does not constitute an abortion. We had to come up with some of the most common medical conditions that threaten the life. We had to come up with standards of care, and we had to come up with a reasonable medical judgment criteria for physicians to function in. These are big deals. These are big topics. We also needed to create a video with it, some medical education support materials, and then we also had to consult legal and medical experts in the state of South Dakota and the Attorney General's office. So we had requirements not to do this on our own, but we needed to get all of these folks together and build the consensus. If you have only one person in the room, thank goodness, you're probably going to still have an argument, even if there's only one person. But when you talk about an enormous group of people, there's going to be a lot of debate, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth on legal and medical terminology. But at the completion of this, we really feel like we have hit the nail on the head when it comes to unwrapping South Dakota law and showing without a shadow of a doubt that South Dakota law, as it stands today, works. And it works for our mamas. Thank you. I will tell you that the volume of experts that we had did not, and I think what, Leslie, I'm going to say that they weren't with us. They weren't with us. We had folks who were absolutely pro-choice. We had folks who were absolutely kind of neutral. And then we had pro-life folks represented. So, if anyone says that, hey, you only chose pro-life physicians and lawyers to speak, oh no, we brought everybody, no matter what stand you were in. And they debated back and forth. But I will tell you that every one of those physicians and lawyers it was a very respectful conversation that was going on. There was no adversarial back and forth at all. There was good debate, but there was no adversarial. I think about Leslie when, being, going through that, being attacked, her lawyer being attacked by other lawyers. Oh no, we came with the spirit of respect to have these conversations. And everyone had the number one priority to protect the lives of the mothers of South Dakota mamas. And the second one, they wanted to honor the law as it was written. We did not hear once, and this is Scout's honor. Give me a Bible, I'll just testify on it. It's the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We didn't have anybody who said this law needs to be rewritten because we can't practice in it. Nobody. Nobody said that. And it didn't dawn on me until about yesterday that going, wait a minute, we didn't have anybody who said this law is so unreasonable that I can't practice in this state from it. Nope. That never came up. So we had discussions and we had debates and back and forth, and we were able to bring out finally on principles that we all settled on and could agree upon. Brought it together, put it into a script. I will tell you that it's very, very hard to have done all the focus groups, done all the key stakeholders, debated it back and forth, came up with the themes, created the video, recorded it, and had it ready on September 1st when we had to turn it on. It was, it was no easy task to get this accomplished in a very, very short amount of time. So I want to give kudos to the Department of Health communications team who cracked the whip on getting people on calendars, focus groups put together, key interviews put together, just to make this happen so that we could fulfill. And I will tell you, we were down to the wire. I think it was 11:59 on September 1st, at right before noon, that we pushed the on button, because that's how much we had to pack and get this accomplished in a very short amount of time. So if you were to listen, and I think we're going to show the video, and it's going to be a very technical video, I'm not going to lie, because it's medical education. Some of the big words I had to say, you couldn't say them 3 times fast. No way. So I had to share some of those. So if you want to watch, please do so when we complete here. It's about 7 minutes. It's very technical, but you'll also find some maybe really good nuggets to help people know, get the one reason that they should vote no. One of the things you're going to see is that intent is very critical. So South Dakota law, we prevent abortions that have the sole intent. Now, the only reason we're doing that abortion is to remove the baby. We do not allow that in the state of South Dakota. But what we do allow is that when the life of a mother is threatened, whether it's through profuse bleeding or whatever type of event is happening, when our intent is to save the life of the mother and the unfortunate, tragic loss of the baby is the secondary impact, that is very much allowed in the state of South Dakota. So the confusion about, well, if a woman's having a miscarriage and she's bleeding profusely, we can't save the life of a mother because our abortion laws are so restrictive, that is absolutely not true. Our intent is to save the life of a mother. The unfortunate outcome and the tragedy, the secondary impact, can be the loss of a life of a little one in those situations. But the reason we did that intervention was not for the sole purpose of taking out that baby. It was the sole purpose of making sure we don't lose the life of the mother. And unfortunately, we lost, per tragedy, the life of a baby secondary. And that's what that medical education video establishes in the state of South Dakota. That intent is so critical. And I think, perfect. The thing that comes out of that law, we learned that the life of the mother is absolutely a priority in South Dakota. And South Dakota law does not throw away lives of mothers. It's very doable. Secondly, that physicians are able to absolutely intervene when their primary intent is to save the life of the mother. And unfortunately, the secondary impact is the loss of a little one. And thirdly, that the intention of why you're doing something matters. If the sole intention is to remove that baby, that doesn't work for us. But the sole intention is to save the life of the mother, then it's absolutely doable. So, I'm giving my little 2-minute card. I don't like those cards. It's probably good for me to have those cards. I want you to know that South Dakota law protects the lives of women. And let me tell you just another little nugget of data in my vital records department. Remember I said we record all of these life events. We record why we lost mothers. You saw my data on that. We record why we lost infants. You saw my data on that. I will let you know that in 2023, when that trigger law went into place, we lost not one mother because they did not have access to abortion in our state anymore. We didn't lose one. So the notion that women's lives are at risk in the state of South Dakota, my data doesn't say that. And I know, and I own that data, and those vital records are in my department. I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, we did not lose mothers because they did not have access to abortion. That is not true in our state. And so that there's a misconception that is circulated that says these women are dying right and left because they don't have access to unfettered abortion. And it is absolutely not true in South Dakota. We have the data that shows us that that is not true. So we want every baby born healthy. We want every mama to make it all the way through her pregnancy healthy. We want dads and families to be supported. We're here to protect life from the first day to the very last day when the last breath happens, and every inch in between. And so, if you didn't know what your Department of Health does, this is what we do. And I hope that we just do our stuff in the background, and we let you do you from that point on. Nathan, you want to show that video? Like I said, if you don't want to hear technical terms, time for the coffee. Go ahead and do that. But otherwise, we'll share with you. I want to point out I had a really good hair day on this particular day. And so I just want everyone to notice that as well.